Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pitch Deck Workshop, hosted by Work on Climate and Zoë Dove-Many. My name is Brian Bergeron. I'm a volunteer with the Founders Sub-Community here at Work on Climate, which is helping to sponsor this event. I'm also joined by Barbara from our events team, who's helping to monitor the chat and provide some tech support as well. Thanks, Barbara. I'll tell you about the Founders Sub-Community in a couple minutes, but first I'd like to talk to you all about Work on Climate. Work on Climate is a nonprofit organization in the world's largest, most active community addressing talent shortages in climate with over 26,000 members. We're on a mission to transform the talent ecosystem and build the workforce humanity needs to solve climate change equitably and justly. Our goal is to make climate work mainstream, empowering hundreds of millions of people everywhere with the skills and support they need to use their talents to build climate solutions. We do this through one of two ways: through top-down efforts that aim to direct policies, standards, and resources towards the climate crisis. The embodiment of this approach is our Climate Workforce Coalition, a new industry body that is in the midst of formation. The other way we do this is through the many communities that touch Work on Climate, of which the Founders Sub-Community is one. There, we run a range of programs that connect individuals, organizations, and experts like Zoe to collaborate on career development and foster a global community dedicated to addressing the impacts of climate change. While a lot of Work on Climate's efforts support development of employees both in climate-focused organizations and bringing climate focus into organizations, our Founders Sub-Community supports the particular needs of the entrepreneurs and innovators needed to bring life the myriad solutions necessary to solve climate change. This sub-community can be found at Roll Founders on our Slack. It's a public channel, so anyone, regardless of entrepreneurial disposition, can join. There, people ask for help on their founder's journey. We also host a number of programs and make available resources for the community. For example, our Founder Stories event series tells the unique journey of climate founders. We had one of those events back in October, and we'll be announcing the next event in the series shortly. Our Founders Club pairs entrepreneurs within the community to rotating half-hour coffee chats. And people have successfully found a co-founder through this club, in addition to building their networks and support systems. But we paused the program this fall and are going to be relaunching it in the new year with a more refined mentorship component with what we've learned so far. And then for those of you who don't know, Work on Climate more broadly has an expert office hours program where you can schedule one-on-ones or small group time with a wide array of climate experts. We are formalizing opportunities with experts who can best serve the particular needs of our founder community and make them available. Again, you can check out Roll Founders on Slack or DM me if you need more information. And so it's with great pleasure that I'd like to introduce Zoe again. So Zoë Dove-Many is on a mission to get climate solutions out of the lab and into the mainstream with the power of storytelling. As a brand strategist and designer, her well-crafted pitch decks have helped raise millions for climate founders. She's interested in how climate founders can better communicate their ideas to investors by getting to know the humans on the other side of the pitch. And so now take it away, Zoe. Once I stop sharing, I'll use Zoe.
Thank you, Brian. Let me share my screen here. One sec here. There we go. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. I know we all have a lot to do, and I appreciate you giving me your attention. I'm Zoë Dove-Many. As Brian said, I run Hello Creative, which is a collective of strategists, designers, and copywriters. And we help climate startups grow by getting super clear on that storytelling. We work with individual climate startups, VCs, accelerators, and communities like Work on Climate. And I do want to mention this at the top of the call in case any of you need to drop off early. I have an offer for anyone on the call. It's a promo code available until the end of the day today. Okay, you can use that for 20% off of your first 3 months of community office hours. So community office hours are going to be a lot like what we're doing today. You can find all this at my website, which Barbara is kindly listing in the chat. Thank you, Barbara. So, oh, and if you want a free thing, you can download my free pitch deck guide. And I send a newsletter one to two times a month with lots of helpful stuff about pitch decks. I promise it won't be long or boring. That's kind of the whole point of it. So a little bit about my background. I've been working on branding and design of these brands that you see here and others for 10 years before I got into climate work. And it was really fun. I learned a lot. But when 2020 hit, there was just so much wrong with the world, including but not limited to climate change, making some grand appearances in the form of natural disasters, wildfires. I'm in California. And I felt like all I could do was just wash and reuse my plastic containers and like give away my art supplies in my neighborhood gifting group instead of, throwing them away or something. But I remembered how powerful storytelling had been at places like these. And I asked myself, how can I use the tools that I honed here to help solve climate change? And when I started to meet founders of climate startups like yourself who had brilliant solutions in their hands, I figured out what my mission was, which is why I'm here today, to get climate change solutions out of the lab and into the mainstream with the power of storytelling. I want to give climate entrepreneurs the tools that we used at places like BET, People's Choice Awards, and Hyatt to articulate and amplify that message. So the agenda here, I have 60 minutes at the top of that. It's actually supposed to say 90 minutes. So first I'll talk about pitch decks, and then we're going to review, today we're actually going to review 2 decks, and then Brian's going to wrap up. Today's going to be very collaborative. I don't want this to be me just talking at you guys. So please turn on your cameras if you haven't already, if you feel comfortable. And I'm going to be asking a lot of questions and asking for participation. And if you could just use the raise hand function, and that way it'll be more fun and we can connect with each other. So the pitch deck, let's get to it, the thing we're all here to talk about. So storytelling in general, in a broader sense, is all about empathy. And I want us all right now to use our imaginations and step out of your own shoes and into the shoes of a VC. The sun is setting, you're ready to go home, see your family, but you've been tied up in Zoom calls all day. Your inbox is overflowing. You open up one of your emails and you see a link to a pitch deck. What kinds of questions are on your mind? And does anybody want to use the raise hand button and answer this? What's on this guy's mind when he's just thinking about opening up a pitch deck and he's got all this other stuff on his mind? What sorts of questions are coming to his mind about the pitch deck? Heather.
I think he's gonna wonder if it's gonna be worth his time to look at it.
Yes, the biggest one of all. Is this even worth my time? How do you think he's going to know if it's worth his time?
I think it's gonna be a first impression when he opens the first 2 to 3 slides. That's the quality of how they're laid out, and then the quality of the words that are on there, whether it intrigues him or not, or it sounds like something he's heard a million times already.
Yeah, quality of layout, words. Anyone else? What's this guy thinking? Here, Amy said, does acting on this pitch relate to my core self-interest? We have relevancy. Yeah. Paul.
Hey Zoe, I think it's gonna this person's gonna be making an emotional decision. End of day, I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I may not be thinking logically as I would at the beginning of the day. So this pitch deck, it may be an emotional decision after flipping through.
Yeah, emotional, tired, hungry, and good to see you, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I think these are really good answers. especially because you guys like didn't you didn't really talk a whole lot about the content of the pitch so much as like just the feeling that he's going through. And I think that's a great angle to approach it, because we want to figure out how we can, what levers we have and how we can pull those levers to intrigue this guy and catch his attention. And a lot of those things don't necessarily have to do with a whole lot of words in a pitch deck, right? So as a friendly reminder, no one invests because of a pitch deck alone. I mean, think about it, would you? Investors usually they're spending maybe 90 seconds going through this deck really fast, this deck that you pour your heart and soul into, and then they decide if they want to take a meeting. I like to think of the pitch deck as like a trailer, and the meetings that follow are the movie. So when you think about it this way, it's easy to remember not to make your pitch deck into an entire movie, because no one has time to watch it. All of your brilliant science and technology, they're going to ask about that during the diligence process. That is not what belongs here. But one thing that definitely won't get you a meeting is if you confuse them. Donald Miller who wrote Story Brand, famously said, if you confuse, you lose. And this is the biggest mistake that I see in early stage pitch decks. And it usually looks like one of two things. It's either talking way too much about the solution and technology, or it's skipping right over what your startup does at all. And we want to remember this guy who doesn't know anything about your company. So what kind of information does he need, and what information is he ready for at this stage? A common misconception is that design is here to make things pretty. I want you to think of it as a tool for communication. It's very powerful, and I'm going to show you how it can be used in the most effective way. So we're always trying to show, not tell information, and that's what design helps us do. We want to make it super easy for this investor guy to skim through the deck and kind of more or less get it. I want you to think of your pitch deck as a machine that does one thing. And that one thing is it conveys a single clear message. Just like this machine, each little part works in service of its overall purpose. So each part of the deck, that is each slide, each piece within each slide, like text, photos, charts, they all work in service of this one message. And speaking of being pretty, notice how even the color here helps you to understand what this machine is used for. We're all able to just passively watch TV and movies and understand them, right? And the reason is that the stories, did I say without understanding them? We're able to passively watch things without thinking about them. So the reason that is because these stories are thoughtfully served up to us with tools that are available to filmmakers, like dialogue, cinematography, lighting, sound, music, special effects. These are all tools, and they're used in a very deliberate way to make us feel a certain way and move through information and process it without having to take notes and sort of do any mental math. So I want your pitch deck to be passively consumed by a tired VC and have them kind of ballpark get what it's about. So what is in our toolkit? Firstly, words. We love words. Words are great. But if we have too many words, our words don't work anymore. No one will read your wall of text. I see a lot of walls of text in early stage pitch decks. This is sort of an instant way to make people not pay attention. So here's an example. This is a deck that I made last year. This product is a dental care marketplace and an app, and it's pretty complicated. But when an investor comes across the deck, they don't really, we don't have to tell them everything about how it works, and they really don't care. They're not there yet. What they want to know is, What is the thing? What does it do? And skimming through this, you can kind of get that. And I want to zoom in on one of the slides. Our solution slide. This is what's telling our investor what it does. And I want you to note a couple things. The title here is not the word solution. The title is giving us way more information than that one single word. And then everything else on the slide is paying off that sentence at the very top. And then we're using visual cues like two identical boxes that are the same shape but different colors that automatically set up this idea of comparison in our minds. And then one of them has stars on it, so it's obviously better. So you really don't even need to read this slide to get what it's about. But you can if you want to go deeper into the information. Another way of thinking about it is like, imagine if all of the text on this slide were all the same size. You probably wouldn't be able to read any information from it. It would just be, it would be a wall of text. Here's an example. I did not make this slide, but this is a really good use of text and the hierarchy of that text. You can just read the title of this slide and get it, right? But if you want to go deeper, you want to know more, you can. That information is there for you, and it's tinier. And the designer has made that decision for you, so you don't have to do the work of sifting through what's the most important piece on this slide and how do I process this information. Again, all of the little things are paying off the big thing. And while we're on the topic of text or of words, jargon, I want to bring up jargon. It is hot lava. We don't touch it. Sometimes we talk like this and we're in other technical circles and people understand us, but when we're not, other people are hearing this and they disengage. So again, hot lava. Photos and videos. I don't see a ton of videos in pitch decks, but I like when I do see them. So it's worth thinking about putting those in. As they say, a photo is worth a million words. And again, we just want to always make sure we're using them to drive our message home. One good way of doing that, obviously, is showing a photo of your product. And look at how much faster and better and succinct that is than this text that's explaining everything. On the left, we have showing, and on the right, we have telling, and we always want to be showing. Other ways that photos can support your message are the context that your product is used in. So this second photo is giving us a lot of information, again, with no words. It's giving us a use case. It's giving us context of where this product is going to be used. It's giving us a user profile. We're actually showing how it's used. So again, showing, not telling. And another way photos can support your message that that you might not think of right away is the environment that your product lives in. This photo on the right doesn't even have the product in it, but it helps us understand the product nonetheless, because we can see, oh, this is the type of person who might use it. This is the time of day he might use it. These are the objects he might be using it on. Ways that photos can hurt your message. One of them, this is a huge one, is if you use stock photos, which I do recommend using stock photos. Stock robot people, there's so many, for every maybe 99, for every one good stock photo, there's like 99 bad ones and they look like this. So if you are using stock photos, you really have to sift through them, especially the free ones. Unnatural poses like this one, they just distract from your message because you're like, why is this person doing that? This, of course, if the imagery is not related to your solution, that is going to hurt your product. And I wanted to show an example. This company, Sealed, is a startup. They're a climate startup. They help homeowners, they like assess homes to understand where leakage is and like find spots to improve energy efficiency. And then they map it all out for people, and then they help to hire contractors to like fix the problems and get like better energy efficiency. And then they sort of, I don't know exactly how all of it works, but they sort of do it in this way that's really cheap for the consumer. And I want you to notice that like, so this is their homepage, and the photos that they're featuring and the ones that I'm going to show you, they don't have diagrams of thermodynamics on here, right? They have the place where this thing is used, the home. They have the person who's going to be benefiting from it. Again, they have the people and the place that's going to be benefiting. And then they have these little diagrams, and these are the kind of diagrams, and I think these are great because they're really easy to understand and really quick, and they just kind of help nudge you towards understanding what this company is about. This is the type of diagram that may make your CTO cry. That is what we want. We want, we don't want people, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but we don't want people doing any work looking at charts. That's all for your diligence process. So on the topic of charts and graphs, I love charts, clear, simple charts that are idiot proof. Another trick that I like to do is you take the chart. So here, this chart is about who's the top lemon producer in the world. And then you take whatever the big takeaway from the chart you want to people to come away with. Is what you make that the title. So, I mean, a fourth grader could look at this and understand what it's about. That's what we want. What we don't want is to make anybody do math. So, and when I say math, I don't mean math in the literal sense of, adding numbers together, but I mean this sort of mental gymnastics that are required to look at all of this information and try to digest it and understand what the takeaways are. It's going to take some time, right? And the investor, again, is distracted, tired, hungry. They don't want to put any time and effort into this. You have to do all the work and serve it up to them on a platter. Here's another example of a chart that just, even if you kind of look at it, and even if it's simple, once you like take the time to understand it, you have to assume that nobody's going to take the time to understand it. Therefore, nobody is going to understand it. And the message is lost. Here's an example of a deck that I did last year. This is something, I mean, you can squint at this and not even look at any of the numbers and understand what it's about, what the message is, right? And again, we've got the big takeaway up at the top here. And then we've got this, everybody loves a chart with lines and bars going up and to the right. And then we've got some big numbers over here that are just looking really, really attractive. Here's an example of this is a situation where the chart and the data is muddling our message. It's hard to look at this and understand why we're looking at it. So, and here the title is not really matching what the takeaway is. And then if you kind of like look deeper into it and figure out what this chart is about, you can actually see that the geographical location of like which counties care about climate change more really doesn't matter to what the point is, which is that a lot of people care about this. So there's probably a better way we could illustrate this information in a much simpler way that probably looks like a bar graph than something that's just requiring so much mental energy to break down. Links, I don't see a ton of links in pitch decks, and I would like to, because they're this great way of giving someone agency when they go through your work. So this is an example of something that I did. I did sort of break my own rule here of making a wall of text, and that was deliberate. The idea here is that these links are here. Everything here pays off the title, right? And the title is, or I'm sorry, and then everything here is, you can go deeper into the information if you want to, but you don't have to. So for icons are a very popular thing to find in, why are pink dots showing up on my screen? Are you guys seeing those too? Okay, this is really bizarre. I've never seen this before. Okay. Anyways, so icons. We want to make sure they're always relevant. So something like this, here we have a lightning bolt, and there's a little bit of jargon going on here. The great thing is you don't have to understand any of the jargon to understand that this is about being fast. It's gently nudging you towards the information that we want you to take away from it. The example on the right is where it is sort of irrelevant to the text. And that's when it distracts us. So like I'm specifically looking at this puzzle grid with the at side. It's like it's making me do too much mental math to understand what what does it mean? Why is it there? What does it have to do with the product? I don't get it. One thing that is always a dead giveaway to me that you didn't get a professional designer is if these icons don't match, if they're not from the same set. So something that like these icons, they sort of all look similar, but you can kind of tell that it's like if they were a font, they wouldn't all be from the same font, right? Like there's this pink here and there's the red here, and they're not quite the same shade. And the ones on the ends have outlines and the ones in the middle don't have outlines. These outlines over here are way thicker than the ones over there. And look just how much more polished and cleaner this comes off, with them all being from the same set. Can we, the pink dots are probably someone on the annotate option clicking on the screen. Barbara or Brian, do you think we can disable the annotate option?
So I was looking at that, and you would have to re-share your screen and disable that through the process of sharing your screen.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm gonna try it really quick. Who could share?
While sharing, click more, and then there's an option to disable participant annotation.
Portion of screen, click more. I don't see a more thing base. I don't have a more option here. I feel like this is going to take too much time to figure out, so we're just going to go back. Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, so we want all of our icons to be from the same set and feel like they're all from one font, if you will. So how do we put all of this into use? What I did I'm just going to share with you like some of the things we actually did in design school. So yes, Brian, this continues to be haunted. First of all, you always want to evaluate what's my basic story? What's the thing that I want people to take away from this? Does the whole thing make my point come across in less than 90 seconds? Now, how can we know that? We can take, this is, again, a thing we did in design school. We used to print out our work, put it on the wall, and stand 10 feet back or 20 feet back. And when you do that, you can't read everything on it. And that's the point. You don't want to be distracted by all the little text. You want to, it forces you to only look at the biggest and brightest things on the page. So whether those are words or charts or icons or photos, the things you can clearly see in this view are where you're getting the biggest bang for your buck in terms of visual real estate. So we want to be very deliberate about what those things are. And then we can do that same thing slide by slide to figure out if each individual slide it's getting its point across in just a few seconds. So again, we just zoom way out. This is the slide that I made for Flossie. You can't really read much of anything on here except for the title. And so notice where your eye is going first, second, and third. For me, I'm seeing the title. I'm seeing this, which isn't really requiring me to do any math, right? It's just we see the state outlines. We're getting a lot of information from just an image here. We're understanding location. We're understanding a little bit about the target demographic. And then the third thing over here is we're seeing something up and to the right, which has got to be good. And now zooming in on it, we get a little bit more information. And normally this would have numbers over here. I just blocked them out. Notice what the biggest words on this slide are, and notice they are not traction. So before we hop into the pitch decks, I just want to mention the offer I have for folks on this call is you can use this promo code for 20% off your first 3 months of community office hours that I'll be doing. I'm launching those this month. You can find all this and the newsletter, the free pitch deck guide at my website, which Barbara has just left in the chat. Thank you. So let's look at some decks. And I'm gonna stop my share and start it again. So bear with me. And we're gonna start with Nick because he's in Europe and he's got to go soon. Nick, this is yours, right?
I don't see it yet.
Oh, I'm not sharing it. That's why.
Yes.
Okay, let me just arrange some things here. The screen. Not that. Great. Okay, so this is a deck that was generously shared with us by Nick from Building Atlas. And before we get into any sort of critiques, I want to just point out that it's hard to have your stuff critiqued, and we're all here to support each other. And so I want us all to be in that spirit of support and be grateful to Nick for allowing us to chop this up for him. So what is, I think what I want to do first actually is I'm going to do that same thing that we looked at like with the Flossie deck where you're just zoomed out. We're going to do just kind of like an overall sweep. And just take a look if you're just scan through the information with me.
I think you can probably ignore the ones in the appendix.
Oh, okay. The appendix is here. So wow, only these 7 slides.
Yeah.
Okay, and Nick, who is this deck intended for?
So it's for so in fact we had one session on Monday this week, and we have another one coming up of short pitches to investors, so angels or VCs for funding. In fact, this deck, the reason it's a relatively short number of slides and we shunted a bunch to the appendix was for a 3-minute pitch session. So it's relatively brief.
Got it. Well, good job cutting it down. It's really hard to do that. So it is intended for investors. I guess we can. Okay, so we can focus on the first 7 slides for this critique. I'm going to open this up to everyone. What is working here? What's working well? And if you can use the raise hand function, go ahead and do that. What do you think is working well here? And this can be about any of the things that we just touched on, which was, if I can list them all, if I can remember them, it was words, icons, charts, photos. There's another one, but I can't remember it. We'll get there. Okay, Lisa.
Hi. I like that there are, I like the background. I like the continuity of the teal on the top. I thought a couple of the slides were a little too busy. Just my personal opinion. I wrote down 11 and 14, which aren't showing right now.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to what can be improved next. Okay. I first want to just start on what was working well. So thank you for sharing that you said you liked the background and you liked the teal.
The continuity, yeah.
The continuity. Yeah, continuity is a big deal. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Zohar?
Yeah, hello, cheers. I think that Nick and Olga have done a very good job on slide number 1, setting the stage that this is a climate tech situation or company decarbonizing, and the niche or the industry or vertical that they're in is well, construction tech or buildings. So I think that is done very well on the first slide, like focusing very specifically on where we're at. So an investor can on slide 1 say, hey, we're not even in that space. Goodbye, I'm closing this deck. Maybe, so yeah, that's my take on the first slide at least.
Great. I'm so glad you pointed that out. This first slide, I see a lot of decks that don't do this, that have, so we've got this really short one-liner right under the title that tells us what they do. And then, like Zohar said, somebody could immediately understand whether this is relevant to them or not. And Zohar, you did say somebody, if they weren't into decarbonizing buildings, they could immediately close it. And that, of course, we don't want people to immediately close it. But the other way of thinking about that is that if you are giving people enough information for them to immediately close it, that means that you are being deliberate. You're being very deliberate about what information you're delivering. And that means that there's somebody else out there who will know, oh, this is exactly for me. So that's a good thing. Lila. And hi, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Hi. One of this is text, but I really love the line ecosystem to scale retrofits. That to me encapsulates like what they're doing. And so I feel like that's a really strong header from this really scaled out view.
Yeah. Yeah. Another really good high level title to help us just get it. Thank you. Heather.
I'm just going to comment on the hierarchy of text. So we can see in each slide, which text is more, we're supposed to see more. I'm not sure about the reverse, the white on the blue. And for some reason I was seeing that second, which is interesting. But then there's also the graph is really simple and easy to understand with, I mean, as long as you see market size, then you can understand that one. The team is a condensed only to 3, so there's not like a giant team on there that you have to decipher. And then the building image, this is a really complex topic to show visually, I think, because it's so much going on with this type of retrofitting. So using an AI, I'm assuming generated image to just show that this is building related, you know, so it feels very like I'm in their building space.
Yeah, all good cues to just nudge us towards the information that we need. And is it Funmilola, or am I saying your name right? Or can you tell me how to say your name, please?
Hello. Good. Yeah. Good day. Yeah. You kind of got it right. I would say the first slide is good. You know, I like the fact that at least it's clear. It clearly states that the company is actually focused on climate and decarbonizing. And basically, I also like this the team section. The team slide 2 looks okay. I can see the pictures and the names of the founder and a little bit of what they've done so far. So that looks great. That looks great. That's just my contribution here.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we're seeing what I really like about this deck is that it's not it's just not super text intensive, and it's not overwhelming us with a ton of information. And yes, continuity between slides is super important, helping us orient where we are. What else do I have? Oh, okay. So I think that the titles have been used well here. So you can read through just the titles and sort of understand what it's about, which is really good. And it has really good readability. A lot of times when you have text over an image, especially like this, it can be hard. So readability is a big thing to pay attention to. As for what we might want to improve about this deck, I want to open this up, and I want to spend a few minutes on your comments, and then I want to add some before we go to the next person. So is there actually, I have a different way of framing this question. When you look at this, what is making you feel confused or distracted or bored? That's where we're going to find opportunities for improvement. Sohar, what do you got?
Hey, again, well done, Nick and Olga, on this. I think I figured it out already, so there's that. I think, okay, playing off Zoe's comment about jargon, I think slide number 3, which I guess is about the need or the market status, stranding, seems like a jargon word. It kind of pulled me back, can anchor a few times. You might be able to forgo that. And then I think that slide has such good information, but it could be less text, like much bigger numbers, 75%, huge font, 65%, huge font, and let people figure out that it's customers, regulators. Like, you don't need that. I'll stop there and let someone else.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, when I first looked at this deck, I thought the same thing. I was like, what does stranding mean in this context? Paul.
Hi, thanks. I would just say that I can't get a sense of Building Atlas's brand voice through the slides. So they are more informational, and what I guess I'm craving is kind of from Flossie. I could feel the brand and the vibe. So it's a little bit more than just information being presented. It's being thrown into the world of Building Atlas.
Yeah. This is a tough thing, I think, for a lot of early stage startups, and it's totally relevant. I mean, brand voice, as you saw with Flossie, it's enticing, right? It makes you want to pay attention. And the deck that we're looking at now is, as you said, Paul, it's sort of utilitarian. It's very informational. So that in itself is not a bad thing. But it feels like there could be a little more sauce on it. And yeah, brand voice is a tough thing to develop. It is useful if you're thinking about your brand voice. If I can give you just like a really quick tip, is to think about three adjectives that you want people to think of your company as. So it could be like professional, calm, capable, or something like that. I don't know if that's super or like authoritative or inviting or exciting, things like that. And then you can always try and tailor your visuals and your words to those words. Any other times that people are feeling confused, distracted, or bored by what they're looking at? Heather.
Yeah, so there looks like there's a pumpkin on the stranding slide.
Over here.
And then on the opportunity, there's something like a money bag maybe. And so
Mhm.
I think those are distracting. I
Mhm.
don't see the relevance of that. There's also the we believe that slide. I think the dots before humanity replacing and owners to me are they stalled me a bit, and like why those aren't more just headline based. But I also, just looking at the content there, I think that can be something more snappy and more grabbing instead of just what we believe. I mean, I think all of those things are great, but I don't know that it. I think that it could be more attention grabbing, and because what this is saying it's going to do is a major thing, right? And it's solving a big problem. So the flossy one said something about dental insurance is horrible or something, so maybe going that route could be more jarring. Oh, and the last one was the opportunity is huge. I like the bolded text there, and so maybe finding a way to limit that to 3 and having just bigger text. It's just feels too full to me with trying to convey. I think it could be less words.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, even though this deck is actually really good on being concise, it could be even more concise. And if we can try to keep your answers short, because we want to make sure we can get to our second deck, and because I want to hear from all of you before we go over the next one. Lila.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up that slide 3, which I think is probably the problem side, or I think of as the problem side, and slide 4, which is I kind of think of the solution side. I'm not sure that I would love to see something that is more, it shows the problem a little bit more and shows the solution a little bit more, just in a more clear fashion, whether that be through a graphic or yeah, just something that helps because I'm not sure that I understand either one of those, so I'm a little confused by both those slides and would love to see some clarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. It's really I also feel a little murky on what exactly I feel murky on what the solution is. I feel like my lack of understanding, I mean, I more or less get the problem without really being an expert in the space at all. But I think some of the things on both of these pages, like we're seeing a lot of words where I think images could maybe help us here. So if we're dividing the problem into the 3 people who are experiencing the problem, I might want to see icons or photos representing customers, regulators, expertise. The pumpkin is definitely distracting. I'm wondering here, I mean, depending on who you're pitching to, you know, wherever the financial opportunity is the person whose problem we want to focus on. So a lot of these problems here are multifaceted, but there's one person who's going to be paying for the solution, right? So I want to know who's paying, who's buying this. And I'm not getting that from this deck. And I think the problem and solution could be more focused on the problem and solution for that buyer. Also, I'm not sure what your solution, like, what does it actually look like? Is it software? Is it like a better building? Like, what am I seeing with my eyeballs once your solution is implemented? And I get that sometimes these solutions are just not all that tangible. And if that is the case, then we can go the route of something like Sealed, where we just have happy families in their homes. Rachel.
Hello, everyone. I am so not an expert on this, so maybe that's a good thing because I'm looking at this like with completely fresh eyes. But I'm thinking slides 2 and 5. If we're zoomed out, we believe that. Like, it doesn't tell me what you believe. And also the opportunity is huge. I'm kind of looking at that like, what opportunity? I can't, if I had like a few seconds and I was just kind of zoomed out on this, I still wouldn't. I know that the we believe slightly, you know, the text is bigger on that, so I can actually read it. But still, if we're talking about like pulling the takeaways into the headings, I wonder if those headings could just really like summarize the slide instead of having to like kind of pull me in to read the rest of the information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Now, okay, the opportunity is huge. Terrific modeling and scoping. When I think opportunity, I think market opportunity. I think that's what we're talking about here. And market opportunity usually is like number focused. So I'm wondering why something like here, the words typical customer are bolded when I'm sort of, that's not the opportunity, right? The opportunity is that 20 to 1,000, I think, is that 20 to 1,000 buildings could yield 1 million pounds of revenue. Paul.
Hello, is it me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that basically I guess you said that it's like a 3-minute pitch, but you know, I think investors will want to know how he intends on making money. You know, basically what is actually the business model. I've not really seen a sort of slide explaining, you know, how this whole plan is actually going to monetize. You know, so that's just like something I just want to add on the side. Then also, like you made mention of, the titles of the slides are not like really explaining. You can't really like quickly understand what the slide is about just looking at the title. So having a title that actually better explains what the slide is about, you know, would actually go a long way. You know, because you were talking about, you know, it probably takes an investor probably 90 seconds to, you know, go through your slide. Basically, that's just my contribution.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And yeah, as Rachel had mentioned too, the titles are great in brevity. I think they could be a little bit longer and give us a little bit more of a taste of what we're going to find at the slide. I agree. We're not, I'm sort of, I feel like I'm a little lost on the business case. And I think that ties back to what I was mentioning before, is I'm not sure who the buyer is. Therefore, I don't know like why they're going to buy the thing or how much they're going to spend on it. I don't know how you're going to reach them. I know we can't cover all these in a 3-minute pitch, so keeping that in mind. And Justin, if you can do your comment in 1 minute.
Sure. I happen to be a building physicist and a data scientist. What I'm missing here is that you're targeting a double bottom line, which is emission savings and cost savings because of this stranding risk, which is the risk of buildings losing their value over time. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that in those slides. The other observation on the ecosystem of scale retrofits, it seems more like a schematic of your workflow, but not really the ecosystem within your work. So I'm not seeing the different stakeholders, homeowners, and city councils, the people which are your actual ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so glad we have an expert in the house to shed some light on what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, the things that you were just saying, homeowners, and I forget the other thing, but you were saying some sort of specific like classes of people that would be stakeholders here. And I think I would really like to know who those people are. So thanks so much, everyone, for commenting here. I'm going to add anything that wasn't mentioned. The text is, for me, actually too big. And the reason I'm saying that is, I'm going to see if I can do this without totally screwing up Zoom. Okay. This is, I sort of feel like I'm too close to the slide when I'm looking at this. You know what I mean? I want to be like, whoa. So, and one way of thinking about that is make sure you've got good fat margins and make them consistent on every page. A lot of people don't think about this, but it makes a huge difference. I have a 3-minute video that's on my YouTube about how to do this in Google Slides. And a little bit more detail about why, if you want to look into that more. But yeah, I think if this had fatter margins, and then another thing, and like each of these, like all of this text could all be sized down. And then the font is also feeling kind of default to me. I'm not sure. Do you know what font it is, Nick?
I don't remember. The body text is, yeah, I think the title font, it might be Calibri. It might well be kind of defaulty. You might be right.
It is generally, okay, so if you're presenting in a bunch of different scenarios, which you probably are,
Yeah.
it is good to have a font that's like super common, right? Because you don't want your fonts not to link up. And the only way to prevent that is to embed them in the file, which may or may not be within your technical ability. So common fonts are fine. I don't know. It's just feeling sort of default to me. That's like all I could offer here. I would want to encourage you to just try a few different fonts. Definitely don't get crazy. Like, don't get weird with your fonts. You want them to be super clear. I might try like a sans serif on these titles. So overall, again, yeah, here, like, there's the text is kind of like, I just want to make it smaller. I want to make this text smaller. And then I want to make sure that each of these, the space between these lines and the space between these lines is not too similar, because that's what makes it look like a wall of text. We want to make sure that all of our objects are grouped on the slide. So the things that belong with each other are for sure definitely grouped together with each other. Here, this text is super big. And so what's happening is, again, that wall of text feeling. Okay, I think we can move on from this one. Nick, tell us really quickly, if you can, in a minute or two, was this helpful to you? Do you feel like you understand what you need to do? And any key takeaways?
Yes, this was all very useful and helpful, and I really appreciate the feedback and everyone taking the time. I think we've struggled to bring it to such a short presentation, and I think that's led to a bit of overthinking and also like tunnel vision when you stare at the same deck for too long. And I also agree the feedback on it being very basically purely informational and less emotional. I think both myself and Olga are a bit like techie nerdy, and it could do with a brand voice, and things like colors and fonts and feeling, even for us as a brand, I know is something we need to work on as a sort of meta point. And then all the individual stuff that you said about the slides, I haven't heard all of this in one place, but I've had feedback from other people, which is little nuggets of this, and this has like really brought it home into what the next iteration should be. And I think it will really help us sharpen it up for the next time around. So it's really valuable. I really appreciate it.
Great. Awesome. I do want to mention just really quickly, Nick, about the sort of brand voice and feeling. That kind of thing is something that designers learn how to do over the course of many years. And it's not, and I find that if you don't know how to do it, it's better to err on the side of just like informational and clarity, and not try and get wacky with it. unless you hire someone. That's sort of my 2 cents from what I've seen in the space. It's not bad to just be informational. Okay, thank you so much, Nick. We're gonna move on to Martin with Sky Scroll. And we're going to start out the same way that we did with Nick's. Martin, can you tell us who is the intended audience for this?
Yeah, I've been emailing it to and submitting it to potential investors. So it's self-contained presentation for investors and business angels.
Okay, investors, angels,
Yeah.
investors.
Yeah, but I've not been.
And you're
not generally speaking, I haven't been presenting it to them. I've been emailing it to them as a PDF or sending them a link to it, and they've been
great. Okay.
digesting it themselves. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, we have a reading deck, my favorite kind.
Yeah.
So this is meant to understand.
That's what
Yeah,
it's called.
to be understood. Yeah, this is meant to be understood without anyone explaining anything to us. So let's
Ideally.
let's do again a quick scan. Maybe I'll I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. There we go. So let's start with what's working. What's working well about this? What do you like? Zohar.
Hey, I think it's very clear what the deep tech actual physical product is. And I think it's very, very clear, we might discuss later, overly clear what the problem that Nick and his team are trying to address and solve. So that's great. I know I understand why I'm reading this if I was interested in reading it.
Great. Yeah, I agree. And that's hard to do. So well done. Nick, or I mean Paul.
I think that the layout, the visual design is clean, good use of negative space and hierarchy. So I think that works really well across the board.
Yeah. Look at all this negative space. It's so roomy in here. It's great. What else is working well? Justin.
I really like the continuity in the text, just black and red font, very consistent across the slides. It reads really well.
Yes, thank you. You brought up something that I wanted to mention if anybody didn't, which is, so yes, consistency with the fonts. I really like the contrast between this this bold font and this regular font. It's really clear to me. Like sometimes something is a little bit bolder than something else and you're not quite sure if it's like intentional. So you want to make that contrast really obvious. And it's just pleasing to the eye too. Helps us scan the information quickly. And then you mentioned how it's just the red and the black and the gray text. This is what we call in design and art a limited color palette. And once you think about limited color palettes, it will change the way you see everything in the designed world because everything has a limited color palette, which means that the designer chose 5 colors or 3 colors or maybe 3 colors and all tints and shades of that same color. And this is even true in 100-year-old paintings, like the paints that they used to mix together. Maybe they only chose from like this part of the palette. It's just something that we find pleasing to the eye. So as soon as you just make those decisions up front that I'm only going to use this red and this black and this gray, and it's going to be on a white background, you're automatically elevating your piece visually. And you're helping people, you're making decisions that are helping people move through the information. Zohar.
Thanks. Maybe one last thing. I think they have achieved here one of perhaps the hardest things to do, specifically in climate, in terms of brand identity, not just like look and feel, which you've just discussed, is conveying that we are experts. And everything until slide 9, at least, has given proof, like articles and links about we know what we're talking about, we are scientists, this is scientific. Like I'm convinced that they know what they're doing, which in climate is a very, especially big, like high-scale climate projects, that is something that needs convincing of, and they've done it well.
I agree, and I hadn't even thought about that, but you're totally right. This deck feels very authoritative. It feels like whoever made this knows what they're talking about. So it's important, I guess, to break down why, which Zohar just did a little bit. We're seeing sources, linked sources to everything. These aren't just like the founder's opinion about something. What else?
But down, there's like a 4-quadrant graph. Besides like the option, there's the graph on the left about it's a classic climate or something. It exudes this is like from a research paper. All right, these guys have.
There's some graph that looks complicated, so these guys must know what they're doing. Yeah, it's funny. I agree. Although I do have issues with the clarity of this graph because I have no idea what it's telling us. But but it does look like whoever made it knows what they're talking about. What else is okay? I'm loving the use of photography in this deck. I see this so rarely, and this is one of those things where, remember when we looked at the presentation that I gave, we looked at like the different ways that photos can help you, and the lemon squeezer, the baby was using it, and then they showed the kitchen. And so a lot of these photos are not even of the technology itself, it's of where it makes an impact and its environment. And the photos are beautiful. So you automatically are drawn in. Everyone loves pretty things. Oh, and they're generally, it's like they're used very judiciously, so it's one per page for the most part. As soon as you start to put more than one photo on a page, you have design problems to solve that are hard. So I recommend just keep it simple. We're doing really good with economy of language in this deck. The only super technical thing, okay, so I look at this and I think this is the craziest, like, technical, wild, like, moonshot thing I've ever heard of. These guys must have like piles of schematics and graphs and whatnot in their like lab that they are building this crazy thing. And yet I'm not seeing really any of them except for this one. And I'm really impressed by that. And I think that's great. Like I mentioned before, the deck, this reading deck, is not the place for all of our technical drawings and all of our math, if you will. So well done with that, Martin. I think, and I think the other side of that, the one thing that I want to see a little bit more of, and so now, well, okay, I'm going to mention one more thing that I think is working well, and then we can move into confused, distracted, or bored. So something that I like about this that's just really cool is the feeling that it gives me. It feels sort of, it's giving me this feeling of possibility, and it's a little mysterious. So when are we confused, distracted, or bored? So hard.
Hey. Again, Martin, this is amazing, and I'm super interested on a personal level anyway. So if you're sending this to angels, and like I think Ole mentioned earlier, who is going to buy this? What is the business model? Who is the client? Is this like for governments or for like frontier, big conglomerates of climate carbon credit purchases? The business model, I think, is not clear, and it took a long time, I think 8 slides or to reach slide 9, which is about, okay, what are we doing? And you explain the problem a lot, which you might be able to do in like 1 or 2 slides. So that's a consideration and thought. One tiny thing, 1 out of 8 men are colorblind. And when you're using red and green, that's sometimes a problem. And only on slide 1, I think, for me as a colorblind mildly person, the red over the blimp gets fuzzed out. So good to know. So anytime you're using red or green, and for unfortunately a dominant male investor group, be aware.
Wow, thank you for that perspective. And I agree with the other thing you mentioned. I don't know who's going to buy this from looking at this, and that's a really, really big piece as an investor. Justin.
First of all, I really love the idea. I was a bit distracted, and when I looked at the slides, my first reaction is, okay, it's a blimp, new form of transport with solar power on top. Cool. It provides shade. I think somehow I maybe the choice of image of a classical blimp threw me off for a little bit. It took me maybe 30 seconds to realize exactly what this is about. The thing is that we discussed how good the graphics are already, but maybe the choice of polar bear is good, but also a bit of a cliche. And I thought it would be nice to show the shrinking ice caps. So just before and after satellite photos of shrinking ice caps. They're very impressive, also a pretty photo, and a lot closer to the problem that you're solving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that could definitely be helpful to the message. I'm also picturing like what could those ice caps look like if this was implemented? Like a rendering of that. Heather.
Mine was also around the imagery. Like your comment just made me think about the blue. There's so many blues in ice, and so maybe incorporating subtly some of those blues in to just give that feeling of ice throughout. And then if you scroll down on the schematic of the blimp, there, so that what I would love to see to get a better feel for the scale of this is some like maybe an AI generated image like from a drone perspective to show this above like the Arctic ice, maybe with a boat or something for reference, just to get an idea of what does it look like for 200 meters by 10 kilometers in scale. Just to have like an animated image of that would really help explain a ton.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I did try a little go with AI to generate an image like that, but they didn't really come out the way I wanted. But I think I really need to get a professional working on this to create that, real artist impression of what it would look like, in real life. And I don't have that at the moment, definitely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree there. I really want to know. I want to know what it like.
I'd like to see it myself.
Look like what does this thing look like in real life? And even if you couldn't, while you're trying to figure out, how to find the solution for that, even a little, you could always put like a little man drawing next to it to show how big it is, to show scale. Something that I want to see more. I want to see more of this. Like I want to see more of like renderings and photos and well, you probably don't have photos of this yet, but yeah, maybe even photos of like the materials and development to show like how underway this is, because a lot of these things, like whatever traction you have, if you have any pilots going, or if you have like, pieces, if you have any pieces of this that are already existing in the real world, it's nice to feature photos of that. But yeah, I want to see context of like what's outside of this drawing. And I also, from looking at it and reading through it, some like one just clarity thing is that I'm not sure if I'm like, okay, so these two blimps go up into the sky and somehow there's like this tarp, we'll call it, that goes between them and it's enormous. And then do the blimps leave and the tarp, like, do they all stay there forever? Or does one piece go back down like a spaceship? I don't know. Katie.
So I feel like this is sort of cheating because the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from this webinar, I think, is the value of those titles to really tell the story at a high level. And so I'm looking at, for example, the strategy slide, right? Instead of just a title that says strategy, can we have a longer statement that summarizes that strategy briefly? And then, then we have the diagram underneath with more information if we want it. But I do feel like scrolling through this, if I had that, I could much more quickly get to an understanding of what it is that this product does and how it solves the solution, and the problem it's identified.
Yeah, great. Titles. A little more detail on our titles, I think could help us along here. Paul.
Yeah, I think that a little bit more context and background for the climate solution in particular, and would be helpful. You know, instead of the slides explaining, you know, we do know that the Arctic is melting, and we already know some of those stats. Reflecting sunlight as a climate solution, I think, is a little bit more of an obscure solution. It's so localized to the Arctic for the general public or investors. So having one or two more slides that really open up this climate solution and really allow us to wrap our hands around what this is would be, I think, helpful.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you brought up a good point, which is that reflecting sunlight, this is sort of a novel solution. And these are things that climate investors already know. They don't need to be convinced of this. So this is a really tough thing with climate pitch decks. The problems that we're solving are so massive and multifaceted that, or it's like problem slide, okay, like how much time do you have? So how do we focus our problem to make it really relevant to this deck? I think the problem could be narrower. Perhaps the problem is talking about, I don't really, this is just some guesses, but perhaps the problem is talking about maybe some existing, like maybe there are no existing solutions for reflecting sunlight, or existing solutions within the reflecting sunlight that aren't working well, or I don't know, but a more narrow problem. Ji, am I saying your name right?
Yeah, this is Z here. Yeah, I'd like to add a point which I found some of the jargon is a bit distracting to me, especially on slides number 4. Yeah, if you can, yeah. So we see there's some three big circles under the title says, you know, TAM, SAM, SUM. So I'm not from that technical, you know, domain, so I really do not know what does all this jargon stand for. And also, you know, we just need to be careful because in the VC world, you know, TAM is a very popular, you know, jargon in the VC world. It stands for total addressable market, and typically talking about the financial market size of the market size. And clearly, for the numbers have been presented here, is more talking about, you know, I guess, you know, amount of, you know, carbon dioxide also being captured, etc., like that. So I think that I just find it's a bit confusing for people, especially come from the financial world. They find it hard to read these slides.
Yes, I agree. I'm glad you pointed that out. For TAM, SAM, and SUM, I would expect dollar amounts, especially if we're pitching to investors. I also want to point out on this slide, this is the only, so we're breaking a pattern here. So this is what we do in design, films do this, like all kinds of artworks do this, where like you establish a pattern by having this limited color palette or your font choices, and then you break it once in a while. And so you want to be really deliberate about when you break your patterns, because that's like attracting people's attention in specific ways. So this is the only slide that is bright red. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, the opportunity is a big deal. So I suppose we could break it up. I guess it's just the feeling I'm getting from like all of these are so sort of like calm and mysterious and lots of white space, and then this red one is like scary because it's red. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. Brian's gonna do some wrapping up here, so I'm gonna stop your share. Thank you so much, Martin. Was this really quick, Martin? Was this helpful to you? Do you feel like you have some takeaways and somewhere to go with this?
Absolutely, yeah, that was really helpful. I've taken loads of notes, so thanks to everyone for their comments. Yeah, thanks very much. I do have to credit some of the best things about it come from, it's entirely just a template from pitch.com that I've adapted. So some of the nice things about it come from them and not from me. So, because I'm not a designer, so I just used somebody else's design. But I chose one that I liked and I adapted it. So, yeah.